It's Wednesday, October 9th. Welcome to Market Foolery. I'm Matt Greer, and I am joined in studio by Motley Fool analysts Emily Flippin and Jim Mueller. How are we doing today?
All right.
Hey, Mac, doing great.
Well, good. Well, we've got lots to talk about. We're going to talk some PayPal and Uber, and we're also going to go to the Fool Labs to talk Nobel Prize winners. I'm not sure we've ever talked about the Nobel Prize on at least a Market Foolery I've hosted.
We should.
We should. And we are gonna, and it has some business implications. I don't want to give it away, but we're gonna be talking some Nobel Prize. But let's begin with the airlines and American Airlines and news that American has pulled the Boeing 737 MAX from its schedule until mid-January. Now, Emily, the 737 MAX has been removed from all airline schedules, has not been allowed to fly since mid-March. So that part isn't news. The news is that it's going to be until mid-January for American. Southwest won't be flying the 737 MAX until January 5th, United until December 19th. So what do you make of the American news and the 737 MAX?
Well, this means for American Airlines that they're going to be having to cancel about 140 flights a day on average. So it's definitely financially impacting the company. And this is kind of par for the course, as we've been seeing right now. But American Airlines really can't afford this type of setback. Its biggest competitor right now actually seems to be Delta, and the fact that Delta didn't have a single Boeing 737 MAX in their fleet when this happened. So Delta has been picking up a lot of slack from these airlines while they've been canceling all of these flights. And it's kind of adding a little bit of salt to the wound here, because just a couple days ago, Delta actually closed on its $2 billion deal with LATAM Airlines. That's the largest Latin American airlines, giving them a 20% stake in the business and a highly coveted spot in these growing countries like Brazil, Argentina, Chile, where American Airlines previously had a partnership with LATAM for those areas. So it's kind of one setback after another for American Airlines right now.
So Americans' problems go well beyond the 737 MAX, it sounds like.
It does. And we're talking not just about management, cultural issues, 737, but we're also talking about their international expansion. So it goes back to LATAM in the sense that American wants to be in growing markets. In Latin America, I think 8 out of every 10 flights heads to countries like the United States in North America. So that's a huge market. And if they start to lose where they did previously have a little bit of an advantage to companies like Delta, it's really going to start hurting their bottom line.
Okay, let's talk about that as we close. Let's talk about the stock. Shares of American down over the past 5 years. Now, the stock's been incredibly volatile, but today it trades below where it did 5 years ago. And when you compare that to United, Delta, Southwest, all up over the past 5 years. So going forward, do you have a favorite airline stock?
Well, I definitely have a favorite airline. And if anybody knows me, they know I love budget airlines. So before I talk about Spirit again, which I will be flying later this year when I head back home for a wedding, I think one of my favorite airline stocks is actually Wizz Air. And I did also fly this around this time last year. Jim just made a look at me.
Are you making that up?
I'm not. Wizz Air is a real airline.
I've never heard of it.
It is. I think it's Hungarian, but it's a budget European airline. On that trip, I flew WOW and then Wizz. So one of those companies is no longer in business. It's not Wizz. But Wizz Air is a really interesting one. I think, they track really great in airline metrics, which is like the cost per available seat mile, which I guess for Wizz is more like the cost per available seat kilometer. Either way, that's really low for the industry. And so they're doing a great job just keeping up their efficiencies, being a budget airline. And as a frequent traveler myself, I love airlines that can do that on a budget.
Now, you mentioned Spirit. Talk to me about Spirit.
I can never mention Spirit on this show without coming back at me.
I have never flown Spirit, but I just have this vision that I'm going to get charged to go to the bathroom. Mm-hmm. True or false? Do they basically charge you for everything?
False for right now, but by the time this airs, it could be true.
Right
look, budget airlines get a lot of flack because they're the companies that make a lot of their revenue from these additional sales, right? So they charge per drinks, they charge for bags, they charge for early check-in, seat selection. But if you're somebody who's conscious of that and aware of that, it saves hundreds of dollars on your plane ticket if you're willing to give up those little luxuries. And as someone like myself, I'll give up those little luxuries for a few $100s.
Well, you're young, okay?
Yeah.
So, and
that's true.
And I don't know how much you've flown, but I'm not as young as you are. And I am willing to pay up for those extra benefits where I don't have to worry about being nickeled and dimed to death. And if the airline makes extra money on it, so be it. I traveled so much in coach in my previous job, flying all over the country, in Canada and even down to Puerto Rico a couple of times. And I've come to cherish first class. And so I've made a pledge that I don't fly nearly as often, and I can save up the money. I'll pay up for first class just for the comfort and the convenience.
And Jim, do you have a favorite stock or a favorite airline?
For flying, first class.
Nice.
But I like Hawaiian, and I like using them to get to the islands where my wife's family is.
All right. Well, let's move on to PayPal. PayPal is writing down a $228 million investment in Uber, an investment that PayPal made right before Uber went public in May. And if you haven't been following the Uber story, the whole public company thing not going so well. Shares of Uber trading well below their IPO price. So, Jim, what does it mean for investors? What does PayPal's write down mean?
Well, we can talk about Uber in just a moment, but what PayPal is doing is basically marking to market their investment in Uber. And by that, I mean they bought shares in Uber at the IPO price of $45, and they invested $500 million. So they got about 11.1 million shares on that. And as of last night, those shares were now worth $30.47, or about $340 million. And so they have to adjust their balance sheet by a $161 million drop, and that's going to show up in earnings well below it's non-operating earnings, other stuff, but it still will lower the net income that PayPal expects to report. On the other hand, if Uber's shares ever decide to go up, then PayPal will be allowed to write up this investment, which is not the same as if they were making an impairment on an asset or like a purchase. They bought a company and incorporated the entire company into itself, and then they realized they made a mistake and have to write down the value of that purchase. That's a permanent loss. With a mark-to-market loss, they can move it back up if the shares ever go back up.
Okay, so it sounds bad, but it may not turn out to be that bad if Uber shares come back.
Right, and this is going to happen every quarter with both Uber and with their other public investment, Mercado Libre. Part of this $228 million comes from about a $67 million loss in its investment in Mercado Libre. So as those two company shares go up and down, the value of the investment carried on the books will also go up and down. And so it's going to be a thing for PayPal going forward. Any analyst is going to know enough to back out those kinds of shifts to look to see what PayPal itself is doing.
This is just another great way for people who are bearish on Uber to point to how horrible Uber has been as an investment. But you'll have nobody doing the same for Mercado Libre. So Jim's right. This is kind of short-term market movements. And it kind of goes back to the idea of, okay, and PayPal invested, I think it was $500 million at the IPO price for Uber. It's down significantly from there. So is it a bad investment? And we don't judge our investments based off such a short time horizon. So why would we judge a company's investments based off such a short time horizon? In a lot of ways, Uber, while it is an unprofitable company, it passes what David Gardner likes to call the snap test, which is if you snapped your fingers right now and that company were to disappear, would your life change substantially?
No.
A lot of people's would. And I would say the market in general would. So I think these companies actually have a lot more pricing power than they realize right now. Right now, Uber and Lyft have been competing on price for so long, giving so many rider incentives that they're both unprofitable. At some point, they're going to raise prices for consumers, and consumers are going to have to pay up for their Uber trips. And ultimately, I think they're going to realize that the value that Uber and Lyft provide in society today have kind of been undervalued, underpaid for by those people who are using rideshare.
And well, let me expand a little bit on my no. That's because I would use Lyft instead. But
Lyft would then raise their prices. If Uber disappeared tomorrow, Lyft would have no competition.
Are they going to end up? They're going to end up consolidating, right? This feels like a Sirius XM that at some point Uber and Lyft they've got to combine to survive.
I don't know if
right?
I agree with that actually.
Maybe, and I don't think regulators would allow that to happen because they need the competition because otherwise the pricing power just goes through the roof and they'll just raise prices once they get rid of all the taxi companies.
Yeah. And we close with a major award. The Nobel Prize in Chemistry was awarded on Wednesday to John Goodenough, M. Stanley Whittingham, and Akira Yoshino for their work on the development of lithium-ion batteries. Now, Jim Mueller, You have a PhD in molecular biology and biochemistry. That's 1 degree. 1 degree more than me, or 1 PhD more than me. and this is a story about science, but it's also a story that has huge business implications.
Not only business, but just lifestyle implications. So what these three gentlemen did over the years, starting off with Windingham and Exxon, of all places, was develop a battery that has a high energy density, requires low maintenance, and does not discharge on its own, what's called self-discharge. It doesn't do that very much. And it's rechargeable hundreds and hundreds of times over its lifetime. These are used, they replace the original rechargeable batteries based on nickel cadmium. You and I might remember those.
Yep.
And they had a hard, they're basically good enough for an introductory battery, but the lithium ion far outpaces it. And following Sony's commercialization of the first one in 1991, lithium ion has replaced the nickel cadmium chemistry.
So if I have a cell phone, if I have an iPhone, then I have these gentlemen to thank.
If you have a cell phone, if you have a computer that, like our computers here in the studio, without plugs, portable electronics of all kinds, electric vehicles, cars and trucks, even the electric tools, the hand tools, the drills, the screwdrivers, those are all lithium-ion batteries. And pacemakers, they have a nice long lifetime of 5 to 10 years, the kind that are used in pacemakers. And they need to be replaced. But just a quick aside, they're exploring rechargeable pacemakers where they're using the heart's pumping action to recharge the battery, so you don't ever have to get it replaced. That's pretty cool, I think.
That is very cool. And I know, and I want to let you share a quote, because there was a great quote about the Nobel Prize win, and I want to give you an opportunity to share that quote.
Yeah. So one of the gentlemen, a professor of chemistry from Linnaeus University, Olaf Ramström, said, "This is a highly charged story with tremendous potential." And as a science nerd, I just love that because it's 2 puns for the price of 1.
I love that. And but when we talk lithium batteries, there are positives and there are negatives.
Yeah. So the positive is, I listed many of the positives. Yeah. Okay. That one flew right by me. Okay, so yeah, good for you, Mac. Not as nerdy as the Linnaeus professor's quote, but still pretty good. But they require some safeguards to make sure they don't catch on fire. And you may remember the Galaxy Note 7 batteries catching on fire in people's pockets, no less. Very dangerous. And even the Boeing had this battery fires on some of their 787s when they first came out because they hadn't. Just because of the issues with the batteries. So one of the issues is that they can discharge too quickly and you can overcharge them. And in both cases, too much current comes out or is put in too quickly, and the batteries heat up and then can catch on fire. And we've seen that not only with the small fires on the Galaxy Note 7s, but also some big fires from like Tesla's cars. So there's issues.
Yeah, well, I don't have a PhD, but I do know that anytime you put a battery in my pocket, the less it can catch fire and the quicker it can hold its charge, probably the better for me as a consumer. I think the battery industry in general has probably been really overdue for a rehaul.
That's a plus.
Okay. It always is a plus.
So one of the things is that lithium and cobalt, one of the other chemicals used in the battery, are in kind of tight supply and getting tighter. Apple, for instance, I believe bought a cobalt mine in Africa a couple of years ago so that they could have a steady supply of one of the ingredients in these batteries. And many of these batteries are manufactured in China. Panasonic is a big one. They're a Japanese firm. They're the firm that provides Tesla with its batteries. BYD and let's see. Samsung, Nokia, Motorola, Kyocera, they all manufacture batteries for either vehicles or for smartphones or for drills and hand tools and things like that.
Okay, so as we wrap up here, because obviously this story and research and the development of lithium batteries, just huge business implications, but I want to bring it back to the Nobel Prize. I'm awarding you a Nobel Prize, and it can be for anything. What do you want? What do you want to win the Nobel Prize for?
ideally, I'd want to win a Nobel Prize for great stock picking. But realistically, what I think I could win a Nobel Prize for is weird body contortions. I can, no, seriously, I can do stuff like swallow my tongue.
It's a new category.
Yeah,
You can swallow your tongue.
I can swallow my tongue. It's weird, right? I can turn both my feet all the way inward.
Be careful. Isn't that dangerous?
I haven't choked yet. So
we're filming today, right? So it's no longer just a radio show.
It's not pretty to look at.
I'm going to go ahead and tell you, anytime you have to use the sentence, I haven't choked yet, you're probably doing something you shouldn't be doing.
Probably.
Wow. Okay. So for weird body contortion, okay, then
I'll take that prize.
I like it. Jim?
I think there should be a Nobel for education, for educators. I'd like to win it. I love teaching people how to what's going on and
I like that.
and so on. But there are so many great teachers, and we need teachers to educate the youth of the world, not just here in America, but all in Europe and Asia and Africa and all around the world. So Australia, I forgot Australia. Sorry, guys.
Can I change my answer?
So there would be really cool, not only for the advancements of science and which is what a lot of the Nobel Prizes are for, but also the advancement of human potential. I think should have a Nobel Prize.
I like that. I think I'd like to win mine for fun.
Ooh.
Just like a Nobel Prize.
Wait, swallowing your tongue's not fun?
No, that's fun. So we could actually.
So you might have some competition.
No, that's true. We could share the prize. Yeah, I like that. It's good. But you got to kind of bring your own fun in life. So.
Sure. Pull away from my serious talk.
Okay, so as we wrap up, the desert island question's a little tricky this week. So I'm going to give you a few stocks and say if you're on a desert island for the next 5 years, which one you're going with. Let's go: Boeing, American Airlines, PayPal, and Uber.
Ooh.
PayPal in an instant.
Wow. Didn't even hesitate.
PayPal's a great company, but you know what? I think I'm going to actually go with Boeing. These are serious issues for Boeing right now, but they are in an oligopoly with Airbus, and I think that gives them a really strong competitive position.
I like Boeing. That would be my number 2 choice over the other two. But I choose PayPal because we're revolutionizing the way people pay each other, moving away, as Jason Moser likes to do, the war on cash. And I think it's has a great potential in front of it.
Well, as always, people on the program may have interest in the stocks they talk about, and the Motley Fool may have formal recommendations for or against. So don't buy or sell stocks based solely on what you hear. Emily and Jim, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Mac.
Thank you for having me.
That's it for this edition of Market Foolery. This show is mixed by Dan Boyd. I'm Mac Greer. Thanks for listening, and we will see you tomorrow.